Hello everyone, welcome to Wind Down Wednesdays. I'm your host Paula Taylor and this is episode 143. So tonight is the second episode in our embodiment series. I will briefly define embodiment so you don't have to go back and watch last week's show, but I highly recommend it. It was a great one. Tonight we were talking about embodiment and your authentic voice. What does your voice, your physical voice, have to do with embodiment? How are they related? So just very briefly before we jump into this, in case you're joining us and you didn't watch last week's episode, the way that I define embodiment is being energetically present in your body. All of your energy is grounded down, is present in your body. You are occupying your body energetically. And we talked a lot about that last week. We're going to talk more about embodiment and physical health when I come back from my break in October. Tonight, what we're focusing on is the voice, what I call your authentic voice. We'll define that in a minute, and embodiment, and we're going to talk about how they're related. So I was going back and forth, but like, how do I start this episode? What do I want to say? Like, where do I want to go? Because this is one of those topics that I'm doing a 6-hour workshop on. Like, I could talk about this for a long time. And the workshop's not all just me talking, by the way. There's a lot of experiential things. But it is one of the subjects that I'm very passionate about. And so this is how I decided I'm going to start. And we'll see kind of where we go from here. I mentioned a few episodes ago that I had been listening to a lot of episodes of Glennon Doyle's podcast, which is called We Can Do Hard Things. And I listened to one, I believe it was from December of 2022 with Jane Fonda. It was called Jane effing Fonda, which I love. And she said something in that episode that I have heard her say multiple times because I have listened to and watched interviews with her over the years. I have read her memoir. And a lot of people have problems with her, and we could go way down that road about why and implicit sexism, and that's not where we're going. But one of the things I will say, it's making me emotional, which I should have known was going to happen. I have never seen another person own their stuff so courageously as that woman. And she will tell you that she made mistakes, and she will own up to those mistakes. And she just has spent her entire life working on bettering herself, working for other people, just tirelessly working for LGBTQ rights before there were even syllables that we use, acronyms that we use, fighting for veterans. Like, she just is an amazing person. And, so I've been following her for a long time because she's one of those people that just has spent her whole life working on herself. And I see a lot of myself in that aspect of it. Introspection. Why did I act this way? How could I be better? How can I shed frequencies of trauma to be a more integrated human being? And she's in her 80s now, and she's still doing that work. And I didn't know I was going to get so emotional about this. I just have a lot of gratitude for her, and for being able to witness that is humbling. And yes, okay. Let me gather myself here. So if you've ever read a book or something, experienced something multiple times, maybe you have a favorite movie or a favorite book, and you've come back to it multiple times throughout your life. Maybe you had a book that you loved as a kid, and then you read it with your kids, or you have a movie that you come back to. Every time you come back to something, it's not exactly the same because you're not the same. You've changed. So I heard Jane Fonda say something the other day when I was listening to this podcast a few weeks ago, and I've heard her say it before, and I'm pretty sure it's in her memoir. But it hit me in a totally different way. And I was like, it was just a very cool moment. So what she said is that when a woman is embodied, her voice drops. It comes down in pitch. And I have heard her say that a few times before, and then she'll go on to talk about in her life when she felt like that happened, and she was in the movie Clute, and one of the things I've always loved about Jane Fonda is her authentic voice. When she is speaking, I feel her speaking straight from this fully embodied, aligned place. And what you will find is, especially very powerful women, there's not a lot of great examples of that because we are trained at such an early age to shut our voices down. And I'm not saying it's just for women, but I'm going to use that because I am a woman and because I think it is much more common for women than it is for men. And now I will specify, I'm talking about kind of cisgender men, cisgender heterosexual men, I can't talk tonight, are kind of taught to be embodied. And there's a lot of things they're not taught, and they don't get to work with their emotions, and there's a lot of downsides. But one of the upsides to being, especially a white, cisgender, heterosexual male, is that they don't have the same cultural programming we do around our voice. And if you think, all you have to do is think, like I just said the word Jane Fonda, and there are people who still hate Jane Fonda for very many reasons, but one of the reasons they hate her is because she is in her power. She is owning her power. She is fully aligned, and she is speaking truth to power, and that is one of the things about the patriarchy that scares that system the most, is to have a fully embodied, empowered woman owning her power. It happens to very many women in power. We could have a whole show on that. That's not what we're talking about tonight. So what I wanted to start there, because I wanted to start with this idea of what is the difference in your physical voice when you are disembodied, whether it's due to trauma, cultural programming, usually a combination. We've talked last week, and you might want to go back and watch or listen to last week's show, because there was we laid a lot of groundwork about this that I'm not going to go back into, but we talk on the show a lot about how most people are kind of hovering up in the mental space, up around their head, and their energy is not occupying their body. So what happens to your voice when you are not embodied, when you are disembodied? And what Jane Fonda said is exactly right. When you are embodied, when you are fully occupying your body energetically, your voice drops lower in pitch. Now, everybody still has a variety. It's not to say that you gotta sound like this and that's the only way you're empowered. That's not what we're talking about here. The comparison is to yourself. So there are a lot of women, which I have a fairly low voice for a woman, just naturally. But my voice varies in pitch. And what I was thinking about as kind of an example of this is when I get nervous, like sometimes in the show, or sometimes when I introduce myself before a sound journey, in my medical job, and this is one of the ways I thought about kind of explaining this to people. A lot of people have a different professional voice than they do in their personal life. And that is a good example of my professional voice is somewhere up here a lot of times. Hi, this is Paula from such and such company. I was calling because the results of your biopsy are in. And I try not to do that anymore. I mean, I've done a lot of work, so I don't do that as much. But what happens is that within your own vocal range, meaning the pitch of your voice, high to low, when you are disembodied for whatever reason it is, fully disembodied all the time due to trauma, disembodied because of cultural programming, disembodied in a moment because you're nervous or uncomfortable, your voice goes up in pitch. And we're going to work with that tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit like this, and it sounds a little bit funny. The interesting thing about this, man, that's like putting on a bad suit for me now. I was doing an exercise the other day that I saw of somebody else who does kind of vocal transformation work, and she was doing this thing where you bounce up and down, and if your voice bounces when you bounce, then you're embodied with your voice. That's going to sound terrible on the podcast. I apologize. And if your voice is kind of up here and you're bouncing up and down, then it doesn't really show as much in your voice. And the anatomy of this, let's talk just briefly about that from a vocal perspective. What's happening in your body is that your throat is actually closed up. When I close my throat up, my voice actually goes up in pitch. When I open my throat back down, my voice comes down in pitch because it's coming down into my body. So that's the physical anatomy of it. When you tense up, professional singers spend all of their time learning how to relax everything in and around their vocal cords, because the more relaxed you are, the more authentic your voice is, the more power you have in your voice. That is actually a classical training technique for opera singers, is to relax the throat. So that's the anatomy of that, the physical anatomy. The energetic anatomy of what's happening there is that your throat chakra closes up when you're cutting off the energy. So if I put my voice up here, all of the energy of my body is kind of up. I can't even do it without raising my shoulders up and making myself really tense. When I come back down into my body, you can hear the change in not only the pitch of my voice, the power of my voice, the quality of my voice changes. When I'm up here, it sounds a little bit pinched. And my husband gets annoyed with me because sometimes we watch movies or TV shows, or even sometimes when I meet someone in person, it's very apparent to me now when somebody is talking with a disembodied voice, and it's almost distracting. And there's no blame around that, because who was trained to do this? I mean, I just figured it out on my own, and now I'm trying to help other people with this. But it's not something that we talk about. It's not something that we're aware of most of the time. But when you start noticing it, you're really going to notice when you can tell when somebody's talking from a disembodied place, and it starts to feel really uncomfortable to even listen to. Like I said, every time I do that in this podcast, I feel like I'm putting on a bad suit, like an uncomfortable piece of clothes. And when I drop back down into my voice, it's like, I took my bra off at the end of the day or whatever. I took my belt off and I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm back, I'm home. That is where you can get. But it is a process. It requires some retraining. So let's talk a little bit about why we're kind of told to shut our voices down, and a little bit about how to open them up. And then we're going to do a meditation to kind of work on that in a very simple, straightforward way that I hope is going to make this very accessible to you in your own body. So first of all, as you do trauma work, as you shed frequencies of trauma, as you re-embody, as you bring the energy back down into the body, your voice naturally changes. You don't have to do necessarily vocal work, but the cool thing about this is that the vocal work also leads to transformation of the trauma. So in the last vocal workshop I did, every single person there had a big release around a time that they felt that their voice was shut down. And the thing is, it's not about the voice. Sometimes it is. Two of us were singers and had experiences, but I didn't shut my voice down as a singer because of singing. I shut my voice down as a singer because I didn't want to be seen anymore. Because of cultural programming, because of programming that told me I was too loud, my voice was too powerful. I cannot tell you the number of times people have told me, your voice really carries, you need to watch that. Why? Like, what is the power of that is scaring you? If you have a naturally resonant and powerful voice, that means most likely that you're embodied, and that makes other people uncomfortable. So there is cultural programming about that. And especially if you're a woman, you're not supposed to be too loud, right? So when I was about 16, I actually got nodules on my vocal cords. There was a physical cause for that, but there was a huge emotional, energetic cause for that. And I literally lost my voice. And it was this time in my life when my eating disorder was really ramping up and I was trying to get smaller. I was not wanting to be seen, but yet desperately wanting to be seen, as we all do. There was a lot of emotional stuff and kind of angsty teenager stuff that everybody goes through. But it was kind of on steroids. I grew up in a home, where I had some trauma, and so that kind of shuts some things down, or that kind of kicks you out of the body. And then there was the cultural programming that we just talked about. So especially as a woman, and I'm not picking on men here, and I would say also as a non-straight male, we are told to shut our voices down. And this comes through at a very early age. When little girls are told that they're being bossy, it's because they're using their voice too much usually, right? They're telling people what to do. Oh, you shouldn't tell people what to do. That's a message to shut your voice down. Whether, it's not conscious, of course. it's embedded in the fabric of that message is, to be smaller as a person. That's a message to shut your voice down, to not speak up for yourself because it'll make someone else uncomfortable. That people pleasing, huge way to shut the voice down. Literally stifling sometimes what you want to say because you don't want to make someone else uncomfortable. And of course, there's a happy medium here. It doesn't mean that we go around just without a filter vomiting things. That's not being in alignment either. But that's not what happens for most people. It is. There's kind of two ends of the spectrum there. That is another side of the spectrum of being out of balance, of being out of alignment, would be just kind of saying everything that comes to your mind without thinking about it first. But what happens for a lot of us, and probably for people who are following me, if you're following me, is that we kind of shrink down. And we've talked about that a lot on the show. And part of that shrinking, you can see, if you're watching the video, when I shrink down, everything in the front of my body contracts and my chin comes down. And you can actually hear it in my voice. When I lower my chin, I can't really talk. It literally anatomically puts pressure on my vocal cords and they cannot vibrate to their fullest. So those are some of the reasons we shut our voice down. Trauma within the family, absolutely. Any kind of trauma. So, and again, we're talking about embodiment here. So anything that encourages your energy to leave your body, which any kind of trauma does that, it's a survival skill. I'm not safe in my body doesn't feel safe. Whether it's a physical trauma or not, it doesn't matter. What happens with trauma is that there is a message to the body that it's not safe, and energetically we kick up out of the body. Because if something terrible is happening to your body and energetically you can remove yourself, sometimes it doesn't feel so terrible. There's a reason why victims of rape a lot of times will say, I saw this happening to me like I was out of my body. That is a protective mechanism so that while the body is experiencing trauma, the consciousness is not fully in the body. And that's an extreme example of that, but that any kind of trauma, little by little, we sort of get removed out of our body, and then pretty soon we're kind of living up in our head, and that is reflected in the voice. Why is this important? Here's the kind of crux of this matter. The voice is literally how we speak reality into being. When we are fully in alignment, when we are fully embodied, and we speak our truth, the vibration of that has the power to change reality. And that is not a woo-woo statement. That is a scientifically proven fact. We use sound to break up liver tumors, to break up kidney stones, to break up scar tissue. So the power of that vibration of sound literally changes physical reality. And when you are fully embodied and in alignment and you have reclaimed your power, because shutting your voice down, what that does is it's giving your power away. When you reclaim that power and you come back into your body, which that's the other thing, working with the voice is a great way to start to come back into the body. We'll talk more about that. When you are in that full alignment and you speak from that space, that is how we create reality. And the funny thing about this, the crazy thing about this, is that we are always creating our reality. That is just kind of how reality works. Most of us are doing it completely unintentionally, unconsciously. And that's why the same thing happens to you over and over again. People fall into patterns because they're not conscious about it. And so the same thing keeps happening to them over and over again until at some point they get some awareness and they go, oh, why does this keep happening to me? Maybe there's a reason for this. And they start doing that spiritual excavation work. They start doing some emotional work. They get to see a therapist or whatever it is. And they start to kind of do that exploration, that introspection or excavation. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a way to consciously create my own reality. That's when that kind of light bulb goes off. Being fully aligned in your voice is the ultimate way to create your reality. Because again, the physical vibration of sound changes matter. And so the more embodied you are, the more in alignment you are, like I said at the beginning of the show, there's a reason people hate women in power, because the power of that empowerment is very threatening to the patriarchal system that we have in place and that we've had in place for a long time. The power of anybody fully embodying their voice. I'm talking about women here, and I don't mean to be exclusionary. I have a feeling most of my viewers tend to be women, but not all of them. Hello, I see you there. Thank you. When you are fully empowered, regardless of your gender or the presentation of your gender, anything like that, regardless of where you are in any kind of orientation scale, you begin to actually change reality. And people find that to be very threatening, because somewhere deep down inside, they can do that too. And they've lost that ability, or they think, there's this victimhood that sometimes comes up. Why does that person have such good luck and I have such bad luck? And it's really more about vibration. It's more about resonance. There's a reason, I just said this a couple weeks ago, but there's a reason we use the term vibes, and that was kind of like a woo-woo hippie term, but it's a literal term, and vibration attracts vibration. I keep seeing this video with this guy, and he's got 2 tuning forks, and he's got a tuning fork that's at 512 hertz, and then he's got a tuning fork that's at, 741. And he hits the one tuning fork, and the other one's just there. Then he gets the matching tuning fork, 512 and 512, and he hits the one tuning fork, and the other tuning fork starts to vibrate, because the frequency of those tuning forks matches, and now all of a sudden we've got multiple vibrations. So that is like a physical representation of this idea of what people call manifestation, is the fact that when I am in alignment and I am vibrating to the utmost, to my full empowerment capacity in that moment, which changes from moment to moment, what I begin to attract to myself is similarly empowered vibrations. And that is very threatening to the system. To have a group of people fully empowered. I had my first energy practitioner circle this weekend, and it was such a beautiful experience. It was beyond what I had imagined and hoped for. And the power of the 8 of us sitting in this room, all doing different types of energy, but directing our intention at one thing is beyond measure. It is that Gestalt idea of the sum of the parts is greater than each individual part. So each one of us does powerful work in our own right. But when you combine us together, that vibration, I had to go home and eat a huge amount of food, because we moved so much energy in that 2 hours that my body was like, I need to fuel this upgrade, essentially. And that was in 2 hours with 7 other people. So imagine how many people, if a group of that many people sitting fully in alignment, speaking from an authentic place, which is what everybody was doing in that space, that could change the fabric of reality. And there's a lot of systems and people that don't like that. So that is one of the reasons that cultural programming is there, to shut your voice down. And that is the power of your voice. So let's talk a little bit more about embodiment and the voice, and then we'll get into the meditation. So this is a two-way street. That's one of the reasons I love this so much. As you do embodiment work in any other capacity, releasing frequencies of trauma, learning how to bring your energy down into your body, that will affect the voice. But the same thing is true in reverse. So as you do intentional vocal work, like we're going to do tonight, like I'm going to do in my workshop in a few weeks, we begin to move those frequencies of trauma, to shed those frequencies of trauma, and we begin to more fully embody. There is a reason why, since I started using sound intentionally in my practice and with my clients, that things have changed. It kicked me into a whole nother gear. Even though I'd already been doing this for almost 20 years, it was like that was the missing ingredient. That was the thing that I needed to connect in my own work. And when I work on someone and I make sound, or I use a tool to make sound for me, things shift in an instant. So doing this vocal work is an incredible way to actually work on getting embodied, to work on shedding the frequencies of trauma, to retrain your body so that your energy is fully occupying your body. So that is one of the things I love about this, is that this work goes both ways. And the vocal work, using your own voice, the vibration of your own voice, is the most powerful way to do sound work. And it's one of the reasons I sometimes smile when sometimes I see these people and they're doing sound baths and they have like all of this stuff. They have all the things. They have all the crystal bowls and they have all the metal bowls. They have the didgeridoo and they have the drums and they have the chimes. And like, yes, that's fun and it's nice to listen to and it absolutely moves energy. But really all you need is your own voice. And that is why I'm passionate about trying to get people to use their voice, even if it's in the privacy of your own home where nobody ever hears you. That's one of the great things about that workshop, is that if you create a safe space for people, the power of coming into that alignment, it's such a vulnerable thing. The voice is one of the most vulnerable things that you can use. It's such a vulnerable thing. The throat, literally, I mean, the throat, people tear the throat out, right? That like in the animal kingdom, that it's a primal thing, how vulnerable the throat is. And using your voice is kind of the modern equivalent of being, let's say, a wolf in a wolf pack and laying down and baring your neck to the person in power and saying, I trust you to not hurt me. That's kind of how this vocal work works. When I hold a safe space and we create this space for each other, the transformation gets even more transformational because we are holding space for each other rather than doing this alone. But starting this on your own, sure, do it both ways. I mean, I encourage a home practice. That's one of the things I teach in that workshop. So I thought about a couple different ways to do this, and I wanted to keep it really simple. And so what we're going to do in tonight's meditation, we're actually going to do a meditation that we've done before, and this is a good way to demonstrate that intention is everything. So there's a meditation that I use for anxiety where we chant Sat Nam, and we start at a high pitch and we go down to a low pitch. And I've done that a couple times on the show. And it's very interesting because what anxiety is disembodiment. Anxiety is all this energy bouncing around in the body. And it's very uncomfortable. So what happens is energetically we kind of leave the body and we're sort of bouncing around, usually in the head, sometimes in the kind of chest area, but it's just this bouncing around energy. So the reason that this chant is so effective is the same reason it's going to be really effective to re-embody, is because we start at a high pitch and then we move down the body. And what happens energetically is then we're taking all of this energy that's disembodied, that's bouncing around in the case of anxiety, but for tonight, it's just disembodied energy. And as we move down, we're actually going to move it down through the body. And so by the end of this, the reason it's so effective for anxiety is that it re-embodies you and it grounds you back down into your body. And it kind of brings all of that energy down and allows you to release it. That's why I love it for anxiety. What we're going to focus on tonight as we do this is actually feeling the vibration in your body as you move down. And the reason this is so important, and the reason we're starting high to low, I said this last week, is because most people are sort of somewhere up in the head space, or maybe the head and the chest. But most of us don't get into our belly, and we certainly don't get all the way down into our legs and feet most of the time. So when we start at a high pitch, we're kind of up above the head even energetically. And we start to gather that energy by lowering the pitch. It's one of the reasons oxytocin breath is so effective for re-embodiment, is because you go from a high pitch to a low pitch. Yes, it vibrates the vagus nerve, but going from high to low actually gathers all of that kind of disembodied energy and starts to re-embody it. It starts to bring it back into the body. So as we're practicing this meditation together, one of the best ways to do this when I teach people is to actually put your hand on your body and start to feel. So and we're going to do this at the beginning, we're going to use an affirmation. That's the other thing. I could talk all night, so I don't want to do that. But the reason the affirmations don't work for a lot of people, and didn't for me for a long time, is because when you state an affirmation from a disembodied place, you're not speaking the powerful truth. You're not speaking that truth from alignment. So if I'm up here and I'm like, I am powerful, that's not going to resonate in the universe in the same way as if I get fully embodied and I say, I am powerful. It has a completely different resonance physically, and that means the vibration is different. That means the spiritual ramifications are totally different. So we're going to actually start this meditation by stating that affirmation, I am powerful. And I want you, as you say that, I want you to feel where that is in your body without any judgment. If it's like, I am powerful, and you can kind of feel it mostly up in the head, that's fine, because what we're going to do at the end of the meditation is we're going to say it again. And chances are you will notice some sort of a shift. You know, I am powerful. I am powerful. You might, you know, and it might be very subtle, but I guarantee you the more you do this work, the more transformative you will find that, to the point where, like I keep saying tonight, when I talk up here and I'm disembodied, it feels like, now that feels uncomfortable to me. And I struggle with grounding. I've talked about this before. If I am ungrounded, if I am anxious, if I am just feeling really off, I always go to sound. And it's always got to be the vocal sound in my own body, because I can feel the vibration of the sound shifting in my body. So as we do this meditation, we're going to start high. Sat Nam. That's way up here out of my head somewhere. And as I come down, Sat Nam. And you can actually put your hand on your body and feel where the vibration is. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. So like as I'm coming down, and you can hear in music, we actually call this a head voice and a chest voice. When you're singing high, you're singing in your head. When you're singing low, you're singing in your chest. And there's this weird transition that can sometimes get kind of croaky. We really want to be in our chest voice most of the time in terms of this spiritual work. But interestingly, now when I sing, when I tone, sometimes I tone really high. Ooh, that's vibrating in my head, but because I'm embodied, it's actually resonating more in my chest than in my head. So if I do that same kind of a sound, I'll have to think about it without kind of being embodied. Ooh, and then I come back down. Ooh. It sounds completely different. It sounds deeper. It sounds rounder. It sounds more resonant. When you're up in that kind of disembodied range, things tend to sound kind of thin. They sound kind of warbly. And warbles are fine. Don't judge yourself for warbles, because that's just energy moving. But what you'll notice is, whoa, the lower you go, you can hear the warbles there. But as opposed to like, it's like to kind of like a woo, woo, woo. Some of that is just how pitch works, and we don't need to go into the physics of that. So I'm doing a lot of explanation of this just because I don't want to do too much in the meditation, because I want you to focus on this. But we're going to start high. Your pitch is different than mine. Don't listen to my pitch. Don't try to match my pitch. Sometimes that can be distracting, and you might require like a couple of times of practice. But the goal is, when you're starting, to kind of start as high as you can comfortably get to, because that's going to be somewhere above your head. And then as you come down, again, you might even put your hands kind of along the side of your head and your face and your jaw, and just feel the vibration. And as you come lower in pitch, you're going to find the vibration lower in your body. The other thing to understand here is that it's harder to feel the vibration in your body, like with your hands, once you get below the chest. Like in the belly, it's a little harder to feel when I get down there. And it's more of like a interoceptive, as we talked about last week. It's more of like from the inside of my body, I can feel that down in my pelvis. So this is going to require practice. This is absolutely one of those things that is a process. The first time you do this, you might be like, I don't know what the heck she's talking about. I don't feel any vibrations anywhere. I don't notice any difference in my voice. I'll be surprised if you don't notice a little bit of a difference. But you might just think, I don't know what she's talking about. She's crazy. keep doing this. When I started learning the primordial chakra tones, it took me a long time to find those tones in my lower body. I could find them in my throat and my heart and my head, but getting lower down in the body can be more difficult. And one of the ways to kind of judge that is just by how your body feels. If your body starts to feel heavy, if you start to be like, oh yeah, I got hips down here, kind of forgot I had hips, I got like legs and knees, that means that it's working. So you don't have to feel the physical vibration in your body. If you're feeling more present in your body, if you're feeling calmer, if you're feeling more connected to the earth, that is all a good sign that you are bringing that energy down. I'm just encouraging you to kind of feel the vibration as a practice. And then at the very end of the meditation, we're going to go back and do some affirmations, and I'm going to ask you to notice if there's a difference. You know, I am a powerful being. I am a powerful being. There's a big difference there, and I want you to kind of see that. So that was a long explanation. Hopefully it made sense. I think that's all I want to say. We'll just jump into it and see how it goes. So let's meditate together. So for this meditation, this vocal exercise, I highly encourage you to sit up. Allow yourself to be comfortable, but allow your spine to be as straight as you can get it. So if you need support, maybe you're sitting in kind of a straight-backed chair. The more slouched you are, the more it's going to cut off your vocal range. So you want to kind of be open in the front of your chest. If that means that you need some support, if you're sitting somewhere like a couch, you might want to put something behind your lumbar spine, like a cushion, to help you kind of sit forward. Or you might want to sit forward on your chair so that your legs are kind of off the front of the chair. If you're sitting on the ground and you're comfortable, elevate your hips. Even if you don't normally do that, sit on a cushion or a bolster. It's going to help with the movement of this kind of vocal energy. Or sit up against a wall, something to give you a little bit of support. Throughout this exercise, we really want to focus on breathing fully down into the belly. So as you breathe in, let your belly float out strongly. As you make your vocal sound, this is one sound per breath. Well, technically it's two sounds because we're going to go sat, nam, but that's all in one breath. When you run out of breath, you take your next breath and start over. Don't have any judgment about, sometimes they're going to be longer, sometimes they're going to be shorter. Don't worry about that. It's a nice big breath in, a long sat and a short nam, and then we're going from a higher pitch to a lower pitch, all the way down the body. Sat nam, sat nam, sat nam, sat nam. And what we're going to do is 2 in each place. So we're going to start at the top of the head. Sat nam, sat. No, we're not. We're going to do 1. I just changed my mind. So we are going to move down very slightly with each sat nam. So sat nam, sat nam. And again, you might want to put your hand on your body to kind of feel that pitch moving down the body. And there's no judgment about pitch here. There's no judgment about the quality of your voice. We're doing this to move energy. This is not a performance. No one is watching you. No one is listening to you. And the more brave you can be with this, the louder you can be with this, don't hurt yourself, but really let yourself kind of belt it out, the more that embodiment is going to really come through. So before we begin the vocalization, let's just do 3 deep oxytocin breaths as we usually do. Breathing in through the nose, sighing the breath out, and starting with that high to low pitch right away. And even as you do those oxytocin breaths, you might notice I can feel that pitch going down through my body and ending somewhere down in the low belly. So do that a couple more times. Just kind of feel how that feels. That's a little bit of a prelude of what we're doing here with our Sat Nam chant practice. And then as you're ready, we're going to take a deep breath in. We're going to do a long Sat and a short Nam, just a little bit of a difference in pitch there. And each time we're going to move down slightly. And again, you want You want to aim to start almost as high as you can comfortably get in your own vocal range, which will make that energetic connection kind of somewhere above the crown chakra. And then as you move down, just experiment with kind of holding different parts of your body and feeling how that feels. Just before we do that, put a hand on your heart, maybe one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. And repeat after me out loud. I am powerful. My voice is powerful. I speak with power. And just notice how that felt. You might even repeat that. We'll do that one more time. Just get a little bit of an awareness of where that might be vibrating. Is it vibrating up in your head or higher? Is it vibrating right under your hand where you're talking? Under your heart? Is it vibrating down in the belly? Just notice. Let's do that once more. Repeat after me. I am powerful. My voice is powerful. I speak with power. And let go of any judgments that come up about that. We're going to do that again at the end and just notice if there's been any shift. So as you're ready, we're going to take a nice big breath in and we're going to start the Sat Nam chant. Sat Nam. Sat moving your hands down your body with this as you'd like. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Starting to pay attention inside your chest and your belly here. You might not feel the vibration through your hand, but start to notice inside your body if you can feel this vibration. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. Paying attention to the hips and the pelvis here, noticing if you feel the vibrations down in the legs. Sat Nam. And when you get down to your lowest pitch that's comfortable, don't hurt your throat, just stay there on that lowest pitch. Sat Nam. See if you can feel that vibrating all the way down to the bottoms of your feet. Sat Nam. Noticing the vibrations in your legs, maybe inside even the bones of your legs. Sad Nam. Continuing on that lowest pitch. Bringing your awareness, bringing your attention to calling any of that energy that's stuck in the head or above all the way down to the feet now with these nice low vibrations. Sad Nam. Sad Nam. Really allowing yourself to get lost in the sensation here, or just setting the intention that you're down in the hips, down in the legs, down in the feet. Sad Nam. Sad Nam. And then release the chant. Just sit for a moment. Notice how you feel. Maybe you feel a little more grounded, a little heavier in the body. We're actually going to do that entire thing again, just one Satnam, starting as high as you can comfortably get. And this second time down the body, again, maybe putting your hands along the body, feeling the vibrations, noticing from the inside of the body how these vibrations feel. So as you're ready, a nice big breath in, starting at the very top of your range. Sad Nam. 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 And again, sticking with the lowest pitch when you get there. Sad Nam. Sad Nam. Really feeling that vibration as low in the body as you can. Just a few more here. Sad Nam. Two more. Sad Nam. Sad a big, deep oxytocin breath. Just sighing out any last energy down into the earth to be recycled for the highest good. Place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly and repeat after me out loud. I am powerful. My voice is powerful. I speak with power. I create reality with my vocal resonance. I am powerful. And just take a moment, notice if that felt different from doing that at the beginning. Maybe you just feel calmer and more centered now. That is a sign that you are more embodied. Maybe that resonated lower in your pitch range. Maybe it felt like it traveled further into the room. Maybe you just felt like you were speaking that with more authority. Maybe you felt like you believed it more. I am powerful. My voice is powerful. I speak with my powerful voice. Just give yourself a moment to sit in this energy, perhaps repeating those affirmations if you like. I am powerful. My voice is powerful. I speak from a place of embodiment and power. I speak from a place of alignment and power. I create reality with ease with my powerful voice. I am powerful. My voice is powerful. I joyfully use my empowered voice. I speak with authenticity and I am heard. Just giving yourself a moment to allow the reverberations of this practice to settle both within the body, within the spaces around the body. From this beautiful space of power, if you'd like to set any intentions, if you'd like to state any more affirmations, call them in now. I am aligned with my highest good, and I serve with joy. I speak powerfully, and I know I am heard. My voice reverberates out and creates a beautiful reality. Taking another few deep breaths here, using that oxytocin breath if it feels good. Just slowly begin to move your body around, just coming back fully to the rest of your day or evening. I encourage you to repeat this practice daily for 30 days will change your life. Daily for a week will be transformational. Or just whenever you feel called to come back to it. Don't put any pressure on yourself around that, but committing to a daily practice is definitely life-changing with this vocal work. So as you're ready, again, moving around, taking a nice deep breath, and perhaps you would like to join me as we beautifully wrap up this practice by chanting Sat Nam at whatever pitch feels good to you. The truth of your identity is that you are a powerful being, and your voice is a vehicle to move that power out into the world and create your reality. Take a nice deep breath in. Sad Nam. Be brave and allow your voice to resonate authentically, and it will change your world. As you're ready, you can open your eyes. Have a beautiful rest of your evening and a resonant rest of your week. And I will see you in October for our next episode of Wind Down Wednesdays.